Hi ladies, Dionysia here, wanting to take some time out with you today to speak to you about some things I've had on my mind about soulmate love and what it is to be a cherished and adored woman. So in this email today, you're going to receive a lot of opportunities to dive into some of these things more deeply, and I'm going to be talking to you about those opportunities later in this video. But I wanted to start off today by sort of defining what I consider to be soulmate love and what cherishing and adoring is. So from my perspective and from the way that I teach, I believe that what we want at our deepest heart, most core level when we identify as a feminine essence being is to be cherished and adored, usually by a masculine essence being. And I'm just saying that these can apply to varying gender roles in different kinds of ways. But today I'm going to be speaking from a heterosexual standpoint. But at essence, who are you? Most of us as women identify as a feminine essence, and we want that masculine essence to really cherish us and adore us. And part of where we get tripped up with that is that, number one, a lot of us don't even know what that means. What is it to be cherished and to be adored? And number two, we don't know how to get it. And we actually tend to do a whole lot of things that prevent us getting it. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today here in this video about soulmate love and being cherished and adored. So what is it to be cherished and adored as a woman? It means that the masculine presence in our lives is looking at us, seeing who we are at our essence self, meaning he's not applying some idea he has in his mind about women or some stereotype about women onto us and our experience, but instead he's really meeting us with his presence, seeing who we are as a unique individual, and then wrangling his resources to provide what will please us, what will make us feel adored. Cherishing is accurate mirroring. It is seeing you for who you are. It is wanting to pour love into you in a way that you will receive it and experience it for the love that it is. Being adored is someone who may not even understand you, who you are and what you are, may be mystified by you as the female that you are, but just cannot get enough of you, cannot praise your beingness enough. And because of that adoration, because of that desire to cherish you, to meet you with presence, to provide you with what will light you up, what will set your Shakti on fire, that guy will go into his natural state of cherishing, adoring, protecting, and providing. And men are doing this all the time. Every time you walk into the grocery store and a man opens the door for you on the way in, that is providing. Every time you're walking along a sidewalk with a man and he insists that he walks on the side that's closest to the cars, that is protecting. Every time he wants to pull your chair out for you at the dinner table for you to sit down like a lady, that is cherishing. It's also providing. So masculine men, by their very nature, behave like that. And most of us as women have never been taught to see it for what it is. And therefore, we either miss it when it's happening, or we actively dismiss it and put it down. We get into this sort of realm of thinking of, well, he thinks I'm stupid or I'm incapable of opening the door by myself, right? So that whole way of thinking about how men behave is very hurtful to ourselves and to them. And that's sort of the basic principle that I like to teach from when it comes to relating with men and how we can receive their cherishing. And when we receive their cherishing, that we give respect and admiration in exchange. Not we give sex in exchange. We give respect and admiration in exchange. So that idea is another one that women get hung up on a lot. I'm afraid to allow a man to plan the date, pull out the chair, pay for the dinner, because I'm afraid that that means he's going to expect me to then have sex with him in exchange. There is no man worth his salt who is in his masculine energy who expects a woman to give him sex in exchange for anything, ever. So I just like to blow that myth out of the water. Now, if you're dealing with a guy who is really giving you that, he is not in his masculine essence, and he is not a good guy, and he does not belong in your bedroom, and he for sure does not belong, for sure not in the bedroom, but also, yeah, he's not worth dating. So a lot of what we need to learn as women is how to discern the masculine guys from the men who are still behaving like boys, the men who are self-absorbed, the men who have no idea how to be with women, right? We want to learn how to separate those guys out and really focus on relating with the good guys, the guys who do have a sense of how to relate with women, who do by their nature want to show up to us and bring presence and give cherishing and give adoration and give protection and provision. Those are the guys that we want to be, dealing with. So what does that mean for us to be receiving him? We talk a lot in the mystery school about receptivity, and I talk a lot in my teachings around sexuality and intimacy about receptivity, what it is to be in feminine receptivity. And what that means is I have the ability to let go in the presence of a man, to surrender into the moment, to surrender into his care, to allow him to give me cherishing and adoration. I can stop being the boss, being the one who holds it all up, being the one who has to keep it together all the time, being the one who is checking off my to-do list all the time, not because I'm not good at doing those things, I am, and not because I'm not capable of managing all of that, I am, but because for me, as a feminine essence being, it feels good to get to put it down. It feels good to relax and not be the one holding it up all the time. And that's what it means actually to get into feminine receptivity. It doesn't mean that we are, we're not dimming ourselves down in any kind of way. We're not being less intelligent. We're not being less anything. We're actually being more feminine. So getting into our feminine receptivity, we then make a space for a masculine man to pour in his cherishing and his adoration. So in our feminine receptivity, we get to, like I said, we get to relax, we get to receive. We get to feel what it is to be treated well. And a lot of us as women, we don't have that in our background because we've been, involving ourselves with men who don't have that, or we've been pushing away when men have been trying to give us that. So there's a lot in the bundles that are available for you in this email today that are going to address those kinds of things. But I just wanted to take these moments with you here to sort of speak to what is in those bundles, what you're going to have access to there, and what is really true here about being cherished and adored. And there's actually a next deeper layer that I want to speak to in this moment, which is about how do we adore or not ourselves. So when we talk about soulmate love, we are for sure talking about that other that we want to have this wonderful, romantic, amazing, intimate connection with, right? But the way that we get to that is by how we love ourselves. Now, there's a lot in the self-help industry about self-love, right? We hear that term, we see that term everywhere. And a lot of us associate that with, bubble baths and spa days and getting your regular massage. And those are all wonderful things. Love them, encourage them. But actually, self-love is something different than all of that. Self-love means I actively look at the parts of me that I have rejected throughout my life, or that I have had disdain for, or that I have been ashamed of, or that I have judged or criticized about myself. And I choose to learn how to actively love them. Now, in my clientele of working one on one with women, this is a lot of what we work on because all relationships stem from our relationship to ourselves. It starts here. And we have better and better relationships with romance and intimacy and sexuality when we tend to the relationship we have with ourselves. And a lot of that I do in my practice through inner child work, inner child bonding. And I wanted to speak to that for you for a few moments today in case this is a new concept for you, or maybe you've done some work like this before and it's like, oh yeah, I remember that was really good for me. So basically what that means is that we are attuning ourselves to parts of ourselves that didn't get adult attunement when we were children. And that could be surely active abuse, neglect, trauma, but it can also happen in really good families that were pretty stable, but there was something, outside of the family dynamic that was coming in. It could have been, at school, or with bullies at school, or with teachers, or with, other adults or caretakers in other parts of our lives. So it can be either or both. And it might be that this is early childhood stuff, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 7-year-old self, and it might be that it's teen years, 15, 17. For some of us, it's all of that. But the major point is, regardless of what the memory association with it is, or what age we're talking about, if there's a part of ourselves that experienced something we didn't know how to integrate, our nervous system couldn't handle all of the big feelings of it, and we didn't have a way to conceptualize what was happening, to understand. It felt confusing. We felt distraught, and we felt alone. This is a key piece in it. Almost always these parts feel alone, meaning maybe they tried to talk to somebody about it and nobody believed them, or people dismissed them, or maybe they didn't even have the wherewithal or the vocabulary yet to be able to talk to somebody about what was going on. And so what happens for us, this is a brilliant, brilliant mechanism that happens in the human being. Our nervous system, when it has too much to handle, will disassociate ourselves. Will tuck our self away somewhere to deal with later, when we actually have the tools and the ability to be able to deal with it. And our nervous system will lock it up in our bodies. So there are all kinds of things that we experience as adults. Unexplained pain in our bodies, no particular reason why. A deep, deep feeling of aloneness. Even if you're surrounded by people, or you might even have wonderful relationships in your life, and you still feel alone. And I want to differentiate here that aloneness is something different than loneliness. So loneliness is what happens when we're in a really good place, actually. We feel pretty good, but we just don't have enough day-to-day human interaction in an intimate way that would feel good to us. Aloneness comes from the child self. It comes from a past self that had an experience that it didn't have the ability to deal with, and it tucked itself away somewhere in psyche to be dealt with later. And that sense of aloneness is actually a key indicator that that's the kind of thing that you've got going on. Other indicators are things like repetitive patterns in intimate relationships that have to do with triggers and arguing and conflict that never gets resolved, and that sense of inside of yourself that something's different about you than other people. So I seem to be missing something that other people have. That's a very, very common characteristic of having a part of self, a past self, that could use some tending and can use some love. And the way that we tend it, the way that we come to directly love it is by doing this process called inner child bonding, where we learn to go back and find the child self wherever she is in psyche and bring her home to the current self, bring her home to the adult self, so that we're effectively reparenting ourselves, actually, and becoming the stable, solid, adult place, adult human place, woman place, where the child can feel safe and at home and no longer alone. And when we gather all of those parts of self through this type of work that I'm talking about, then we become more whole inside of ourselves, and we become more powerful inside of ourselves. We reintegrate almost like dismembered parts of ourselves that are elsewhere. They're not here in our conscious mind. The land of psyche is vast. And it is amazing and magical and deep and mysterious. And all the places that we can go in Psyche is incredible. They are incredible. And if you're not familiar with doing the work of Psyche, if you've not met it through, for example, depth psychotherapy or through mythologies or through working in the realm of Psyche, you might have met it, for example, in dream time, if you're a person who meets all kinds of things in your dreams. So all of those things I was just naming, that's the realm of Psyche. And the interesting thing about Psyche is that it exists outside of time and space. It does not recognize the time and space you're in right now. So you could very well be 45 and still having the same kinds of feelings that you would have had as a 5-year-old because they didn't get processed when you were 5. And that part is still hanging out in Psyche waiting to be brought home. So all of that, from my perspective, is what self-love actually is. And when we do the work of that kind of self-loving, we have more of ourselves available for our lives, for our careers, for our creativity, for mothering, but also for intimate relationships and for sexuality. So, sexuality for a woman who is whole in herself or working at her own wholeness and really values and cherishes and adores herself for who she is so much more luscious and yummy in the bedroom than a woman who is frequently triggered, feeling like something's wrong with her, and missing some of these child selves that are really needing some care. Those are two different kinds of experiences from the perspective of sexuality and intimacy and relationship. So if you're a woman who's in relationship right now and you can see how you could, really feel for more of yourself that way, then you might benefit from, this inner child work that I'm talking about, and or from the sexuality bundle that's available for you here in this email. So I would point you towards, checking out sessions with me. The links for sessions are here in this email, and or you can look at that sexuality bundle at the end. You might also enjoy either one of the things that are about relating with men if you're having some struggles with that. Single ladies, all of this is applicable to you, from the soulmate bundle to the stop chasing men, start receiving bundle to the sexuality bundle. All of those bundles have just a wealth of information about how to relate with men, how to understand feminine receptivity from a different place, how to move into your receptivity to receive men more, how to understand how they're different than we are, super different than we are, and how to find your way to your own sexual current, to your own personal sexuality. So we tend to think of sex as something we do with somebody else, but sex is actually what we are. It's what we come from. And from a feminine wisdom perspective about sexuality, we are made up of sexual energy. Our planet is made up of sexual energy. Everything that all of us came to be here through sexual energy. Our food is made through sexual energy. And so when we learn to look at it as energy rather than an act that we do with somebody else, then we come to cultivate our relationship with that energy. And then when we get into that act with somebody else, it's far more pleasurable and enjoyable for us and for them. So that's what this sexuality bundle that's included in this email is about. I want to also point your attention to the free videos at the bottom of this email. There's some things for you there to check out my teaching style and some that are related to what's in the bundles. And of course, I'm available for you to reach out for sessions if you feel like what I've been speaking to today actually rang a bell for you. So I do a lot of work with women around their sexuality, around finding that sexual current, around having more pleasure in their bodies and in their sexual experiences. I do a lot of work with women around revitalizing current relationships or looking at the patterns of what didn't work out in past relationships or both, to sort of take some of those things apart and reorient how we're doing relationships so that we can feel empowered in them and we can feel cherished in them. We can feel like a woman who's being adored and protected and provided for, and we can allow ourselves to enjoy that and to know how to enjoy that and to recognize it when it's happening. Sometimes, women that I'm working with, they really need help sorting out who are the good guys and who are the not so good guys. And, there's some of that in the Stop Chasing Men course, as well as you can have that in, one-on-one sessions with me. I do offer a discount if you purchase a bundle of sessions as opposed to just singles. And you can see all of that in the links that are included in the email here. So my idea in speaking with you today was to, offer you some things that can really help you in your own journey around bringing yourself into greater soulmate love. This soulmate, number one, and others that we'd like to share with as well. And what it is to be in love with yourself, to really engage in the act of self love. Loving at its best is a verb, it is a thing that we are actively doing with ourselves and with another. And I think there's a lot of really juicy content in the bundles that are here for you today. And like I said, I'm available for sessions if you feel like you need some more one-on-one. So this loving, active verb of what we do for ourselves, how we relate with our internal world, how we relate with all those parts of ourselves. And they can be really overt sometimes, and they can be really subtle sometimes. And we want to stay with ourselves, stay close to ourselves. And then that influences and impacts how we're relating with another. What we're able to receive from somebody else is based on our own self-worth and self-value. What kind of love we can draw to ourselves is equal to the love we have for ourselves. So we want to be always sort of close to that sense of how are we doing with loving ourselves in the realm of being single or being in relationship, or being single and wanting to be in relationship. In any stage of those things, our self-love is crucial. It's important. And from my perspective, it's the most important part of soulmate loving. So I hope there's something here for you. I hope you found some real value in this video today. And as always, I'm wishing you the most delightful, juicy, yummy, delicious, amazing version of self-love and soulmate love and cherishing and adoration that you can imagine. Sending so much love to you from my heart, ladies. Blessed be.